Welcome everyone. Today we have our another episode, and this is the conference on smart cities, and we have our world famous speakers, Professor Rob, Mr. James Eid, Jennifer, Tom Rose, Adam, and I think Professor Donald also join. And this session is very, very important because we will discuss on how we can develop communities and how we can develop better policies and better governance. We have like expert from Transhumanist Party, Mr. Tom Rose, and Jennifer. Jennifer is already go for the elections. And most important thing is that World Talent Economy Forums, we are trying to developing a good communities, and we have a good news. According to my commitment when I started my World Talent Economy Forum, that we want to develop our universities, our campus, and everything. Already from Malaysian government, we ensures 1,000 students scholarship, 100% campus, and their job. So the Malaysian students, we will train 1,000 students in this pandemic situations, and we 100% they will get job. This is actually develop a better community in Malaysia. Not only that, we are strongly engaged with the global communities with our knowledge-based activities. And I believe that our board of advisors, our guests, they also join in our communities. It's mean, yes, their identity is very, very important, but fact is that they will contribute for our community development, especially youth community development. I want to give thanks to Malaysian governments and the local entrepreneurs, those who actually really doing excellent job. Yes, we are doing hard works with our team. Not only me, we have our back end very big teams we are working. So hopefully your support will be very, very important. Already all of our content we are utilizing for undergraduate, masters, and PhD program. They develop utilizing it for their case developments, and hopefully with your contribution we can do a lot of innovations in Asia Pacific. And beside that, many political party, political organizations, think tanks, diplomats, corporations, they are supporting World Talent Economy Forum initiative. And I believe that this way, we will change the local communities with the help of global speakers. So let's build the new world with new energy and with some positive energy. So I want to start this conference. I want to start from Professor Rob for his speech. Yes.
For my speech, okay, that's pretty good. Give me 30 seconds to write it. So anyway, we're talking about smart cities and in the context of the post-pandemic world, and so it probably depends greatly city to city what the problems are that city is facing after the pandemic. And I don't want to presume, but the thing that I'm seeing most common is the post-pandemic problem is citizens' distrust of government, and that's problematic because during a pandemic you need the citizens to do what you want them to do as a government to protect their lives and stay safe. But if there's distrust between the citizens and the government, then they're going to revolt, and they're going to do exactly what the government doesn't want them to do, which in this case is collect in large numbers, not wear masks, and avoid vaccines. So the goal then of a post-pandemic smart city effort is to connect the citizens in a bi-directional, open and transparent way and communicate with them over a period of time so they gain trust in the process, gain trust in the people that are running the government, and then when they're asked to do something, they're more willing to do it, as opposed to being ordered to do something. They're given the reasons why, and they are convinced at scale. And this means clearly a mayor or a governor or a major politician is not going to be able to engage with everybody individually, but they have people on staff that can certainly do that. And there's technology available in the terms of conversational AI that can assist with that particular path, depending on the kind of budget you have and the technology you have available to you. But the process is first to create a hierarchy of the problems that you need solved post-pandemic, and then you develop a strategy against the problems as they appear on that hierarchy. So you're going after each problem in rank order, and you're able to address and correct them as you go forward. Often what governments do is they go out and try to fix everything at once, and spend too little on each individual element and then make little progress, or they get bogged down in partisan arguments about what should or shouldn't be done, and once again nothing gets done. So the best effort is to build a hierarchy, address each item in rank order, and if the problem is in fact communication and a separation between the people and government, then that needs to be the predominant thing that needs to be solved. And I would argue that that's probably the predominant thing that needs to be solved in most government areas where the citizens are not following guidance, is that lack of communication, that lack of trust, and that needs to be the priority. Because despite that, regardless of the disaster or problem, if the citizens won't do what you want them to do, you won't be able to mitigate it, whether that's a flood, earthquake, or a pandemic. And I think that's probably the biggest problem we need to address here is the fact that people are not trusting government, and therefore they are not doing what needs to be done to keep them safe and keep the community operable.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any of the speaker want to add some point with Professor Rob?
I think he's right on. I mean, the issue is the algorithms. They have corralled us into different bubbles, and so social media needs to be fixed, and we are seeing the fixes that need to happen. Also, thanks to the pandemic, and so yeah, I think that's really I agree. That's should be the first priority, is that make sure that we're all in the same story, that we're all experiencing the same as objective as we can of reality. And these algorithms are nuanced, and they can find our certain biases, and they can corral us into different places. And so that's really should be the first priority, in my opinion, is before we enhance the trends that have been happening, like telecommuting and these positive trends that happened from the pandemic. We really need to make sure we're all in the same movie, and get a hold of our algorithms, or create recipes and algorithms that can find these biases or fight these other algorithms that are loose in the world. But yeah, I completely agree.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anyone want to add some point?
Yeah, I just want to double down on the idea of trust. It's the trust has been broken in our society, and it needs to be rebuilt. And if smart cities can play a part in that, that would be a wonderful development.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And beside that, I just want to add that World Talent Economy Forum, we are working with Transhumanist Party. They are very innovative political party. Lot of young peoples and the innovative group of peoples, scientists, they are working together. And I believe that even in Asia Pacific, many youth communities, especially youth community, they have core trust on Transhumanist Party. Even from the chairman of Transhumanist Party, Gennady, he also proposed, like any countries need vaccine and this kind of support, they are ready to serve for the nation. This is very, very important. Already few of the country, they are getting support from the developed nation, especially country like USA, even the Europe, even Japan, many countries, they are helping for the vaccine. So I want to give a special thanks the developed nations people, because this is your hard-earned money, and you are supporting many people from the developing nations. So this is very, very important, and we need to develop a better community in this way. So we have our another speakers, Jennifer. Even she is doing election this time. So hopefully it will be very interesting discussion today. So Jennifer, what your thought on this smart city?
I actually just wanted to follow up and say how much I agreed in regards to needing to have communication with the government and the people. There's really been a lot of breakdown of that. I think in many areas that people feel like they can't get a hold of their government, that they don't know what's going on, and they don't have communication. I feel bad for anyone that was in office when the pandemic started, because that was definitely something that people didn't expect, and it was a new thing that persons all over the world in all kind of circumstances and conditions had to mitigate and are still trying to deal with now. But I think that before the pandemic, we needed communication with the people. And I think that after it just sort of emphasized how much we really do need to open up the lines of communication with people. And with the technologies that we have available today, there's no reason that we can't do those kind of things. You can see small examples of it with different alerting systems that we have, maybe Amber Alerts and things that we have that can kind of let everyone know on their cell phone that something is happening or a storm is coming. So those are small examples of really what we could start to put in place for people to let them know if something's happening, but not just something like that. You can open up the lines of communication to let people know, of opportunities that are coming in, grants that are available, different programs that they can do, and just keep in constant communication, but also make sure that they have a way to get in touch with you to voice concerns and things that are going on that are going to be addressed. We have proposed here for our administration to bring in a Center for Scientific Solutions, which is going to be a place where persons, we can sit and list all of the different issues that we're facing in our area. And we can really apply a scientific approach to how we're going to solve that for each and every single person that is in our city. So, things like that, taking the scientific approach to the issues that we have to face, really looking at every single one of the people in your area and trying to make sure that you put into your governance that quality of life for every single person across the board is your most important project. So, just those I think those kind of things are really important, and now there's probably a little more emphasis on it, even with the pandemic that we've gone through, that we really do need to take more scientific approaches to the way that we do our governance.
Thank you. Any speaker want to add some point with Jennifer?
Just want to point out that there's actually a product that was developed to connect citizens, actually employees, to their management during times of crisis. That's BlackBerry Ad Hoc. It's a decent offering out of Canada, and it was specifically designed for a disaster mitigation and management with regard to cross communication with employees during a time of outages and major disasters. It's the only product I'm aware of its type. And I'm just kind of surprised.
What was the name of it, Rob? Because it cut out. It cut out when you said the name.
It's Ad Hoc, ATHOC, by BlackBerry.
BlackBerry. Interesting. That's really interesting. Thanks.
Okay. I have a question. Like, if you give some guideline that how we can develop better policy, or example, when we develop smart city, like government initiative as well as corporation initiative also important, how we can develop better public-private partnership. Jennifer.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you were going to me specifically for that. Developing better partnerships. Well, I think in general, here specifically, I think that we're dealing with certain partnerships that are coming into our city, and it's something that I've seen not just in our city, but in a lot of areas, and I'm sure people have seen this just around the world, is that you have to be very careful of the kind of partnerships that you're bringing in order that you aren't bringing in stuff that is negatively affecting the people that have been living in your city. So a lot of times when an area is sought to be built up, you have to balance out that things aren't going to be gentrifying the people that have lived there, and pushing them out because they can no longer afford things because of bringing in certain partnerships. And that's something that there's a delicate balance of here. It's already starting to be a situation where people that have lived here for a long time are not able to afford things. And so I think that you have to really just take a look at everything that you're going to be bringing in, and make sure that it's going to be a benefit to the people that you're trying to serve when it comes to partnerships. There's a lot of other things besides just bringing in particular, partnerships and investors that you can do in regards to grants that are available for building up businesses that are already there and have already been there, and different things along those lines that can be used to help build things up, and try to really focus your programs around building up the people that are in your city, putting in paths for them to be the ones that are able to get involved with home ownership and get involved with, investing and things like that, and real, affordable paths for that. And I think that there's been enough things that have been done all over the nation here and all over the world to remedy nearly almost every social issue, because we can look at areas where people have very, very high quality of life all over the world, and basically trying to put in those standards for our area. If it's your nation standards, starting to try to get everything up, to that even, and then of course shooting for having world standards in your area. And if you're bringing in people that have already worked on these issues and solving them, and have had success, and you work on bringing them in to apply them to your issues that you are facing, then you can really solve those while keeping all of the people that are in your area well-being in mind.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, I can just add to that.
Thank you for joining. Yes, definitely.
Hi.
Hi.
Just that
Yes.
I think that it's important to bring in people who have experience with these standards, but I also think that standards are shifting, and I'm a big proponent of listening really hard, actively listening to digital natives, young people specifically. I'm the last of the analog generations as a Gen X, right? I grew up with cords and buttons and dials and things, and
Yes.
and it's a whole new mindset going on right now. And so I think it's really important that while we bring in people who understand the standards, because that system is still in place, we also need to be looking at the behaviors and the massive shifts that are happening with these digital natives, because it's like a hive mind emerging. Definitions that we took for granted are shifting, things like freedom and things like that. And so it's really important to actively listen to where these things are going, because what can happen is if we apply the old paradigm standards to a template to these new smart cities and these young people, they may not necessarily fit in there. So we really need to look at the nuances of what is changing. You talk about, even with partnerships, what partnerships should be pulled in or sought based on the needs of the people in that community, specifically young people's needs. I'm sure there's big partnerships that come in and see the capitalistic opportunities in a region based on the old standards and old paradigms of things, and that could last for about 10 years. But the real power is in noticing how the infrastructure is changing at the base with these young people, and they, even with the whole movement towards virtual communities and virtual worlds. I mean, gentrification may not matter if you can move to a small little cubicle and live in a virtual world, which is immaculate and beautiful. And, so we need to pay attention to some of these trends that are happening. And I, for one, know that I have no idea what to do with these young people. It's like I have no idea, how to help my kids with certain apps and things like that. There's definite gap here. But the beauty of the gap is that the Gen X generation is very small, and so we are the middle children, and we will listen to our younger siblings, and try to facilitate them. So. But I think it's really important to have these standards and to bring in people with wisdom and experience to set the tone here. But it's also very important to understand that everything is changing, and these young people have a whole new mental infrastructure that we need to support.
Thank you, Mr. Tom. We have our another new guest. Thank you for joining today. So I will come to you. Before that, I want to give chance, Mr. Professor Donald. So you get 10 minutes for your speech. And Professor Donald, can you hear me? Professor Donald, you have to unmute.
Miraculously, the troubleshooting on Windows worked. My audio wasn't working. It actually worked. Yay! So anyway, I want to talk a little bit. I want to talk about two things: resilience and morality. And as I've said before, smart cities is something that I was working on with city planners about 30 years ago. It's not, we talk about it as digital, but it's about life and quality of life and how to make cities livable. Yeah. And as I pointed out yesterday, there are things that aren't going to change. As I pointed out last time, 15 minutes in nature is the same as having a day of vacation. And so New York City is a wonderful city. And if you walk around New York City, there's Central Park, and all around there's these dog parks, these small parks where people go and their dogs run around and they sit around with a cup of coffee and they talk to each other and they get away from the streets, and they have these small islands of nature everywhere. And well-designed cities, London has lots of places like that, parks everywhere. And these are little respites that actually are good, really good for people's souls and brains. And the city I live in was deliberately designed with green belts around it. And I have one special place I know where I can go for an hour and not see anyone. It's a secret place that I just happen to know about. And it's almost like taking a drug to go there, to be in a place where there's nobody. It's wonderful. And so, and I want to lay that as a foundation. But when I talk about resilience, I want to point out that give San Francisco as an example of resilience.
San Francisco.
About 2 months ago or 3 months ago, people were leaving San Francisco because of COVID. And you could get an apartment in Hayes Valley, a one-bedroom apartment for only $2,500. Now, to many people in the world, that seems like a lot of money, but in San Francisco, that's practically free. And San Francisco has rent control. So you could have gotten an apartment in one of the nicest places in San Francisco for practically free and kept it. I mean, that's insane. Now, it's just 2 months later, after the COVID vaccine, they're back up to $4,000 and there's bidding wars. They're gone. There's no place to rent in San Francisco again. What happened? That's resilience. The same thing is happening in New York. Let's contrast that to Detroit. In Detroit, people are leaving. The city has shrunk to half the size that it is. And what do? They build stadiums so they can get major league teams there, hoping that they're going to draw people there, and it doesn't work. They try and try and try to get people to move there, and they can't do it. Nobody wants to live there. In Detroit, there's the median house price is $7,000, and it's more valuable to take a house and tear it down and take the copper wire in the house and melt the copper wire down and sell it than it is to actually keep the house standing. So that's obviously a city that's not resilient. So what is it that makes the difference? It's difficult to understand, and it's not something that people necessarily know. But it's worthwhile to think about what causes cities and what causes cities to grow. What made New York City be New York City? A lot of it has to do with transportation, being transportation hubs. San Francisco is right at the mouth of the Sacramento and San Joaquin rivers. So is Oakland, and they are the transportation hubs to the Central Valley, and kind of grew because of the gold rush, because the transportation and the agriculture from the Central Valley go to the deep water ships that carry that stuff to the rest of the world. Port of Los Angeles, those various ports. New York is a wonderful port. And those kinds of things are still necessary and make the cities resilient because they bounce back because of that. And I'm mentioning resilience in this particular case because we're in a very interesting inflection point, because the sea levels are rising and the weather's changing to an incredible degree. And when we're thinking about cities and smart cities, to be smart, we have to be smart about what's going to be happening to these cities in the next 50 years, 100 years, because these the things that make these cities resilient in the sense that I'm talking about and valuable. I mean, San Francisco is besides the transportation, it's basically the fun place of Silicon Valley. So young people, we ask, the digital natives, blah, 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 like that. Well, if you live in Silicon Valley, people who work in Palo Alto and all those kinds of places, the young people, they all move to San Francisco and commute down because it's way more fun to live in San Francisco than it is to live in Palo Alto if you're 20-something. There's a lot more possibility of finding a mate and other kinds of things in San Francisco than there is in Palo Alto. So that the reality is that one of the things that makes cities resilient is that there's lots of people there, and and within a city you can have a higher degree of specialization. So in Palo Alto, it's difficult to have. Palo Alto has an incredible amount of restaurants, but yet it's still difficult to have, say, I don't know, Southern Sudanese restaurant, because there's so few Southern Sudanese in Palo Alto, but in New York there's probably 50 of them, because the city is just so big and there's so many diverse people there that it can support all kinds of just niche things that you couldn't possibly have anywhere else. And that incredible diversity makes it unbelievably attractive and wonderful to people from everywhere. And that also creates an incredibly innovative and dynamic, exciting, wonderful environment that's going to be attractive to people. So the whole idea that people are going to start leaving cities and going out to places where they just kind of live by themselves just isn't going to happen. And cities are going to continue to attract people. And the example of San Francisco, where people left because of COVID and now are coming back rapidly, and they're doing it in New York too. I have a friend that's there, and he's telling me that same thing is happening there. I think kind of shows that that's what's going on. Now, what I want to talk about morality is because it's something that Jennifer was talking about, which is that one of the issues, and it's something I brought up last time, is that when the way cities have been designed historically is there's been redlining. There's basically racist divisions within cities. So what they've said is rich people can live here and poor people have to live here. And if a poor person, basically people of color, try to live where the white people are supposed to live, they just won't let them. And there's a really well-known, a really wonderful professor at Stanford named Claude Steele, who was raised in a ghetto, basically, in Hollywood, Florida. And he actually dealt drugs for a bit when he was a youngster. And he speaks the ghetto English that he learned when he grew up there, but he also speaks absolutely flawless upper class or educated class white English. And he'll just have people in his office just to show this. And what he'll do is he'll just pick a random rental out of Craigslist, and he'll call them up and he'll ask if he can rent the place in his ghetto English. And they'll tell him, no, sorry, it's already rented. And then he'll put down the Craigslist ad and he'll call them back in his upper class educated English. And they'll say, yeah, well, why don't you come by and take a look at it? I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, there's just barriers like that. And we have to be able to develop a society where those kinds of things aren't happening. And I'm fond of giving Finland as an example, because Finland decided to try and be helpful to Somalia when Somalia was in complete chaos. And they allowed a lot of Somalians to immigrate to Finland. And Somalians are black, and Finland's are about as white. Well, yeah, many of them are about as white as you could possibly get. And many of them had never even seen a black person. They literally, the older generation. And what they did is, interestingly, is they didn't let them move into a place where they were all together. They scattered them throughout the country. So now when you go there, it's delightful, and you see young black Somalian kids riding the bus with young white Finnish kids, all speaking Finnish and just hanging out together like there's really no difference between them all. And they just, they work at the stores, they work at the computer companies, they all work together, and they just got homogeneous. And again, talking about the morality aspect of it, is there's a downside to that, which is that the Somalians also have a rich culture. They have a lot to offer. They have a lot to contribute. And in so doing, you're erasing that culture. You're erasing the value that they have to add. And so that poses a dilemma. I think that Mexico has done an interesting job of that, which is that they have quite a few indigenous cultures, actually dozens or even hundreds of indigenous cultures. And in all of their schools, they teach the courses bilingually. They teach the indigenous languages and Spanish. So all of the kids grow up bilingual, where they know their own indigenous languages and they know Spanish as well. So they can preserve the heritage of their own indigenous cultures. So I think that what comes out of what I'm saying right now is that a smart city isn't just technology, it isn't just IT. Well, a couple of things that I'm saying is, one, that cities are attractive and they're magnets. I think the idea of smart villages, there was a well-known book called The Rise of the Creative Class by a guy named Richard Florida, where he predicted that people would leave cities and go to desirable places like where I live, Santa Cruz. And because of the internet and all of the technology, people would just go and live in all these different places. But that didn't happen. The opposite happened. And Florida later realized he was wrong, and he showed that actually it's the interchange between people, the ability to connect with people that are different than you is the source of innovation and creativity, and that people are attracted to places where people are different and where where creativity and innovation and possibilities happen. And so the cities are, there's a book called, what's it called? Oh, I'll remember in a sec, but where he says cities are man's greatest invention. And the foundation is that cities are, man's greatest invention, and they're going to continue to be important. But cities need to be resilient, and they need to be resilient both in their economy and the source of their value, and they need to be resilient in their safety as the world changes and climate changes. And they also need to be fair. They need to be moral, and that means being able to be fair to people of different economic circumstances and different races. And that means not just homogenizing everybody, but celebrating the differences and being able to support the differences between the different kinds of people. And that, to me, is what a smart city is. It's not a matter of Internet of Things or other kinds of stuff like that, because that's just going to happen anyway. There.
Thank you, Professor Donald. Anybody want to add some point? We have our another new speakers and Professor Ching. Sir, you want to add some point today, like with Professor Donald?
Yes. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I have, just sort of jotted down something I need to talk about, which is totally different what you people are talking about. I have been listening a little bit on what you said. You see, my goal is to advance from current money-oriented society to a knowledge-oriented society. In other words, today, Milton Friedman has started this thing. He tried to get rid of the political-oriented society. So he had middle class dominate the society. So he wanted a money-oriented society. So we have that. But the problem is that is everybody go marketing. Okay, nobody do knowledge. My teachers, who are in their 90s, they all passed away. So there's a vacuum in knowledge. So we have a dark age of knowledge today. So the way to get into a knowledge-oriented society is first to reset the currency. Okay, today there's lots of new currency come about. Okay, Bitcoin and all other stuff, digital currency. And for us, Paul Science Institute, we have invented money. The money is called universal permanent money or integral gold, which will be universal and permanent because it has intrinsic value, just like gold and silver. Okay, so in other words, today up to now, nobody knows what a money should be like. All we have is a permanent money, which is in limited supply in the form of gold and silver. Okay, all the money in the past has gone. All the money today will eventually be gone. Human beings really don't have money. See, they don't have something to represent money, and we have invented that. After we invent that, then we start with how to distribute this money. Okay, the way to distribute this money in a knowledge-oriented society is to supply the money through innovative projects. Anybody in the world can propose innovative project. And this project will be judged by our solution of value, which is called the infinite spreadsheet. Another, we look into the future. It's not going to be judged by peer review. Okay, the peer review process looking into the past is totally wrong. This is the worst, one of the worst, device process, which is worse than the market comparison method, which caused the saving loan crisis or the financial crisis caused by comparing to the past. Okay, we want to calculate to the future, and this is a solution to the problem proposed by Kenneth Aaron, Gerald Debreu. They're all Nobel Prize winners. I solved the problem. Cosine Institute has the solution. And we will calculate to see if all the project was what they claim to be. And the consequence of this is we will have high rate of return investment, which will balance the universal basic income, which nations are doing today. They have unlimited quantitative easing, which give low rate of return. Okay, today I give this solution to Ben Bernanke to solve the subprime vote, and he only follow half of it. You see, he just dump money, print money. Okay, print money and give it away. This is a low rate of return. You must also invest. You give low. You have one hand low rate of return. The other hand you must have a high rate of return. So you got to fund innovative projects to balance the two. Okay, low return and high return. Human resources will all be used. You see, all this innovation comes from human beings thinking. You see, so basically, I want to use this new currency to balance the low rate of return of unlimited quantitative easing with high rate of return of innovative projects. Okay, that way the society will have a permanent, balanced approach toward this unlimited quantitative easing. You see, then if we have that, we have to find a place to implement this completely new idea. Okay, today the world has no knowledge. We are the only organization seem to be continuing doing knowledge. Okay, if you don't, you think I'm incorrect, please try to challenge me. Okay, you can get my information, contact information from the host. Okay, where is any knowledge? No knowledge. If I go out to talk to some technical people, they all run away because they have no knowledge. All they know is marketing. Okay. So all the people I've been dealing with, they're my teachers. They're in their 90s. They all passed away. And so basically we are very hungry for new knowledge. So let's summarize. Let's say how to implement it, where to implement this. Okay, if you look into knowledge history, you see that the world progresses in a certain way. Okay, it progresses from one culture to a next culture, like Greek culture to Roman culture, then to European culture. Okay, it seems like a culture, once it gets old, it just naturally deteriorates.
Hugh, can I jump in here for just a second? The topic we're supposed to be discussing is smart cities post-pandemic.
Right. Exactly.
What does this have to do with smart cities?
This is exactly, you are talking about the wrong smart city. I'm talking about the right smart city. Okay, do you see this? I'm saying the smart city must be based on knowledge, not based on marketing.
You're talking about currency and economics.
Yes.
I don't think a city can implement a currency
in the smart city. Those things are what's needed in the smart city. It's not your suggestion of how to market or young people. Okay, who cares about young people? Young people with innovation, they can come and they can contribute to innovation. It's knowledge which is going to save us. It's not marketing again. Okay, continuous marketing, making money. Money is not going to save us. Knowledge is going to save us. Okay. So let me continue with the next point. Next point is we must find a place where we can implement this. My suggestion is there's no place we can implement this. Okay. All the culture are stuck with their culture. German, Europe, they are stuck with science. They are for empirical verification, which is good for science, but not everything can be empirically verified. Social science, you buy an ounce of gold, you can never tell if the ounce of gold you pay the right price or not. Okay, you have to calculate to infinity. Infinity never arrive. You cannot empirically verify. Okay, even DNA, life science, you cannot empirically verify drug test. You take some medicine, You see, it might affect your children in the future, generate to infinity. Okay, you must base on logic, mathematics. You cannot base on empirical verification. The scientific method no longer apply in social science and life science. So this is how difficult knowledge is. Okay, so we need to find the next place. The United States is founded by giving everybody freedom. It's based on Locke, John Locke. He thinks that we need to get rid of all these kings and emperors. We need to have no government. We need to have small government. Everybody has freedom. Okay, this is a good idea. This is an advancing culture. But the freedom is the society. Can the society be free? The answer is no, because just like material objects are regulated by non-viable laws of nature in physics, society, human behavior regulated by non-viable laws of nature in social science. Okay, those are the mathematical rigorous derivations. Okay, this is very deep knowledge. So we need to find the next new world. I can take anybody's suggestion where we should set up a new world, which is not burdened by our old culture. Okay, my suggestion right now is to just give a suggestion. Okay, I would suggest New Zealand and Australia, which are not contaminated by old culture. Okay, they haven't really established their own culture. So all the thinking people, they can bring their ideas to this new world, whichever it be, Brazil, Canada. I think
I'm going to go back to point of order. James was really supposed to be the next speaker. This was just an ask for comments on what Jennifer had presented, and this is way off topic. We're not even on topic anymore.
Let me summarize. Let me summarize one sentence. I don't want to talk too much more. I know you're running away. Okay. So basically, let me tell you.
You're off topic. That we're supposed to be talking about post-pandemic smart city.
Right. The pandemic gave Science Institute a great deal of time to think. Yes. And we look at the whole picture. We think smart city must be built based on knowledge, not based on marketing again. Okay, not based on money. Okay, money is not going to help you. You don't even have the money. Okay, the money you are printing today eventually will be worthless.
But cities don't print money. You're talking about governments
money to build.
Yeah, that's a whole entirely different subject, and I completely disagree with you. Okay, I don't want to talk about it. I don't need a lecture on Austrian economics. I really would prefer you just shut up, actually.
Okay, you people want to run away. That's fine. Okay, this to us, we understand you much better than you understand us. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, that's fine. I appreciate you already give me the chance to say it.
Okay, thank you. You said it.
You want me, you can try to get me. If you don't want me, fine. You know, I know you people. Okay, I know. Okay, especially those who object to me. Okay,
I feel like I can tie it.
Shut up.
No, I feel like I can tie this back.
Don't try to use all these shut up things, okay? You get out.
Can you cut him off, Sharif?
No problem.
Okay. I don't know what the backstory is here, but I think I can tie this back. He's making a very important point. I mean, and it can be tied back to the idea of the smart cities. When you think of smart cities, you think knowledge, and his assertion that we have no more knowledge. There's no more gaining of knowledge. It's really just regurgitating and recycling ideas. And what he's talking about, I believe, is the lack of original thought. There's a lack of original thought. I mean, AI can be creative because creativity is really just synthesizing elements and creating things that already exist, right? He who is most creative hides his sources best, right? So what we're lacking is the ability for original thought. And that brings me back to my point that we need to really be listening to digital natives. We're talking in definitions. We're talking in definitions and parameters that are analog. We do not understand what the species is going to need next. Definitions are changing. Our definition of freedom is different than a millennial's definition of freedom. They feel more free the more connected they are to wider groups, as opposed to us who feel it's autonomy that is freedom. So what I think he's talking about is it's important because we really do need to base our economy on real values, human intrinsic values of productivity and original thought and ideas. And so I think it is important when you're talking about smart cities is we need to back up a few steps. We can't place the same templates onto the new smart cities that we used before. We need to find new templates of original thought coming from digital natives who have specific needs and a specific future that we don't have. And so I do think it's important to entertain ideas of new currencies, and it's difficult certainly to implement these things, and it would take a huge effort. And everybody's got great ideas, but what's really most important, I think, and it was brought up earlier, I think, by Donald, about how we need to really appreciate our differences. And I talk about this a lot, and that we need to appreciate our data, our personal data that we are giving away for free now. And we need to appreciate our regions, our cultures, and the nuances of what make us specific humans and humans in general. So I think it's very important to think in this way. I think we really need to step back, break out all of these molds and templates, be iconoclastic with the way we are approaching the future, because I got no idea what's happening. I don't have the infrastructure, the mental scaffolding to build this stuff. So I do think it's very important to search for original thought, and we can only find that in digital natives.
Okay, just a comment. Okay,
Thank
just
you.
one comment, not giving another speech. I know after the pandemic, I now have students in their 20s and 30s, okay, young students all over the world, geniuses. They all come to me. Okay, I did not promote the idea I just told you. They promoted, okay. They look at it, they say, oh, this is great. Okay, so this I agree with the gentleman, commented. He said, young people, they rush toward me. Okay, so what can I do? I have to come out to say something, right? If you
thank you.
record my talk today and send to my students, they'll go wild, okay, because they understand the technology behind what I say, okay. So basically, that's it.
Thank you.
I agree with the gentleman. Yes. I appreciate, he put it in a neutral way, but I know that people run away from us, okay. But you cannot run away from 20, 30-year-old.
Okay, thank you. Like Professor Rob and Professor Donalds, want to add any comments on this discussion?
Well, I think it's important we keep very close to the subject matter. Then when you're talking about smart cities, you're really talking about what a city could implement, something that's within the control of the city or at least the state government to implement. And there are a lot of things that are outside their purview. And if you start articulating solutions that they don't have the capability of doing anything with, then we're just filling time. We have to take into account their capabilities, their funding, their staffing levels, and really talk about what it is that the city can implement when we're at this level. If we're going to talk at a general government level, then we can bring in things like currencies and some of the other things of a central government could do. But it's beyond the purview of a lot of the stuff we've been discussing is beyond the purview of a city. They might want to do something along these lines, but they don't have the resources or capabilities to do it, especially not the smaller cities. But even the bigger cities like LA and New York, if you look at their limitations, they're severely limited and have to rely a great deal on the federal and state government to do some of these massive major projects. So I just want to warn the speakers that we need to say the subject, we'll just lose our audience.
Yeah, but all I want to say is that knowledge, freedom, money, those are incredibly complicated topics, and any one of them could be many, many shows. I mean, yeah, there's many, many theories about what those things are, and it takes years to be able to even begin to sort out what those different theories are. I mean, we might be able to offer it in our PhD programs at our university, but it's not something that we could, just go over in a few minutes on a show like this. It's not reasonable.
But I'd be open to having a session on this topic at some future point. It just we need to have a session on the topic as opposed to, taking an existing session.
We will arrange it.
Yeah.
Yes. Professor Ching, you want to add any points as a final thought?
I think we need to go to James Z next.
Yeah, well, I appreciate some people.
Definitely.
Some people take interest in what I say. Otherwise, I leave everything to my students. They are rushing so fast. I cannot stop them. Okay, you people better answer to them. I really, I'm the best dancer in San Francisco, by the way.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
And also I reduced my age by 28 years before pandemic. Okay, 28 years. Okay, by design. Epigenetic lifestyle. In principle, I should be able to live forever. If you can reduce your age, and the people who measure your age is correct, then you solve the problem of immortality. That's my interest. Okay, smart city. My only suggestion is use knowledge, not money or politics. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. Jamsit. Thank you, sir. Mr. Jamsit.
Finally.
Thank you, Sharif.
Yeah.
Yes. Just wipe the blood off my tongue here. Professor Cheng, I'm very grateful to have heard you, and I was listening to what you had to say. And I'm going to take my role as protocol converter and say what I think the nature of the conflict is that we have a format for this show, which is people get a chance to speak, and then people listen to other people, get the chance to speak, and then we usually cycle back through it and that sort of thing. So you were finding yourself in a format that wasn't allowing you to say what you wanted to say the way you wanted to say it. And so other people objected to that and said, hey, wait, we've got to do this format. So it's perfectly understandable why there was a little contention. But I think everyone here is open-minded and willing to listen to other people's points of view. That's been my experience. And one of the things you mentioned, the knowledge, and I have another word for this, because are we building smart cities? This has always been sticking in my craw a little bit. What do we mean by smart? Do we mean efficient? Do we mean efficient but soulless? If you're building an efficient but soulless city, I want no part of it, and it wants no part of me, because I will not get along with others in such a place. And so maybe we could choose a different word just to lower the temperature a bit. It's wisdom. How are we going to choose wisely? How are we going to build cities that are best, providing the best for the most? How are we going to do that? And if we ask ourselves that question, when we're starting to solve the right problem, because if we state the problem accurately, it's half solved already. And what are we trying to accomplish here? Is it to build the fastest way to communicate data from one point to another? Or is it a place to people can live quality lives, quiet lives of dignity? And how many of them can do that? And how are we preparing that for them to live those lives as best as possible, as for the most, as many as possible? And is that what we're really after? And then do we change the way we go about it a little bit? I think we might. So there's a couple of other things I wanted to say. I was very grateful for you to take a little stab at Milton Friedman, because there's so many adherents here in this country to his way of thinking. And he was a brilliant man, brilliant writer, absolutely. But I say he's just about 50 years behind the times. And, and we tried it his way, and it just didn't work. And some of the assumptions that he made, I think, had flaws in them. But, don't try to deal with his cogent reasoning, because he reasons cogently quite well. But, so attack them at the assumptions. And some of the assumptions are or like what you were saying, is monetary based, marketing based. These are not the way you build a just society, a society where it's best for most. And this is the objections that I have. And so people will say, oh, you're a communist, you're a Marxist. And no, I'm just a post-capitalist. We have to start thinking about things in a different way. Because what we have done has created a gigantic mess, which has reached catastrophic proportions. So, getting back to smart cities, wise cities, maybe I'll start using that word. Wisdom-based cities. What are some of the technologies that'll make things better in terms of government? We're talking about governing. How do we govern these things? Well, how about voter registration? Wouldn't that be like that? Because right now we're seeing an American Horror Story playing out right in front of our eyes, when people in power are saying, oh, those people who are not likely to vote for me, let's disenfranchise them. Let's make it impossible for them to vote. Ha ha ha, I'll stay in power. So that's what's going on right before our very eyes right now. So couldn't it be in this future smart, wise city that voter registration is just automatic? It's just you're born, you reach a certain age, and boom, you're registered. And then how about voting in the elections? Isn't it just as simple as just logging in, getting the security identity, voting, and logging off? Why isn't it that simple? Why do I have to stand in line on a hot day to vote? It makes no sense to me in this day and age. So these are the types of things. And then how do we go about building this so that it's answerable to the most, to the many? Well, I think you start with yourself. You start thinking instead of your rational self-interest, which is really a way of saying selfish, and in your enlightened self-interest. Because in your enlightened self-interest, you think of others. You think of others, and are they able to live lives of quiet dignity rather than quiet desperation? And it's in my best interest if they are, because then my neighbors are happy, my neighbors are productive, and they wave at me when I come out of the door in the morning. And this is the kind of smart city that I want to live in. It's not a soulless, efficient city. I want no part of that. And it's the thing that you start with yourself and you think about, how would I want to be treated? How would I want to treat others? And then you start to talk to your neighbors, talk to the people in your sphere of influence, start changing your community. And Professor Donald was saying, people used to sit out on the stoops because it was too hot in their house, and then they got talking. And it was just natural. So how do we keep people talking? How do we keep them just, if you're not going to be bumping into each other in the water cooler or bumping each other at the grocery store, how are we going to keep bumping into each other and have conversations naturally occur? So let's plan that in this wise city of the future. So we have to be able to have people talking to other people, people communicating, people forming communities. And then there can be communities of communities. It can grow from there. And so then you can have your voting structure, can elect your representative from your community to join the community of communities and talk to the other representatives, make your needs known to them, they make their needs known to you, and you go back and you talk to your community, and then you go back to them and they talk to them, and it can grow from there. So it's more of a ground up than a hierarchical top down. And so this is a way of building the governance system intelligently, knowledge-based, wisely, that we could spend some time talking about, I think, in the future. But as people said, there's so many topics that have been brought up. Every one of them is fascinating to me. Every one of them I'm intensely curious about. I wanted to grill Jennifer when she was talking about science and technology and government and what that really meant. But, we don't have time. So we have to say what we have to say as efficiently, as quickly as possible, and then move on to the next person. And that's the constraints that we're under. But no one's trying to shut anyone up. Pardon me if the frustrations boiled over and those actual words were used. But we want to hear everyone's opinion. We're open to other opinions. And that's the nature of Sharif's show. It's one of the reasons I keep appearing on it. It's because he's set the tone. And that's the tone we want to maintain going forward, in my humble opinion. Thanks, Sharif.
Thank you, Mr. Jamesid. Anyone want to add some point with Mr. Jamesid? Any speaker, Jennifer's or Adam?
I love the term "wise cities." I think that's smart. That's wise.
Yes.
That's where
Yes,
we should go.
thank you.
Yeah, smart
Thank you.
has a lot. It's a loaded
Thank you.
word.
Yeah, I want to apologize
Okay.
to Hugh. I'm sorry. I just was trying to figure out some way of getting you to cut off, and I wanted to give other
Thank
people a chance.
Thank you.
So I apologize.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Actually,
Jenny-
I usually in a much happier environment where my dancing fans rush toward me. Okay.
Okay.
Here we talk intellectual.
Okay.
It's to me, it's not as happy. At
It's
least.
a tango. We're in a tango here.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, and this is also a very good example because we heavily share our content with policymaker, with government, with corporation, and academia, so they can understand how.
Welcome to live streaming. Sharif was frozen for a second, but I think
Unless
Adam,
he's lost in thought, he could be lost in thought.
He just liked that pose so much he wanted to.
Yeah, I think Adam is next. He's the last to not yet to have spoken. So Adam, why don't you go ahead until Sharif gets back?
I'll just proceed then. Okay, cool. Thank you. So, smart cities in terms of the pandemic. Smart cities, it could be agreed upon, would be one of the most viable solutions for calculating the risk of a potential huge pandemic occurring, predicting when exactly, where the epicenter will be, where it's spreading to first, modeling and simulating the domino effect of its spreading on, and any patterns that might go towards quick prevention measures, why it's happened and how, instead of groping in the dark and relatively when compared to the processing power of supercomputers, when people in a fraught situation try to work out what it is, where it happened, where it came from, was it imported somewhere or not, and what to do about it after a certain checkpoint, where by that time lives have been lost already, devastation has already occurred, people's careers and livelihoods have been taken away. So for preventative measures, digital technology, ubiquitous digital technology responsibly used, will be more effective at catching something early enough before regrettable havoc and devastation has a chance to do as much damage as is possible without smart city technology. And even experts, scientists, specialists, politicians, of course, even during a crisis, or especially during a crisis, are prone to human error, lobbying, corruption, unfortunately. Never waste a good crisis, I think, is the saying that goes sometimes. So the nature of artificial intelligence might be harder to bribe and corrupt morally and ethically. So you have evangelical singularitarians who would openly admit to putting more trust and invest more faith and confidence than any human. However, I think many ordinary men and women would sooner trust yet another human in politics, leadership, authorities, governments, organizations, than what they consider to be newfangled AI. And of course, even though it might be harder to bribe or corrupt an AI, I think the equivalent weakness could well be reprogramming it and hacking into it. So we'll see. I enjoyed what Professor Donald Steiny said about the diversity of metropolitan areas. I remember reading or hearing that London has at least some people living there from every single nation that exists around the world, which means you have some people from Vanuatu, Micronesia, San Marino, Faroe Islands, and that's amazing. So yes, I'm also glad Mr. Donald Steiny raised the issues of morality and ethics about 10 minutes prior. People use morality and ethics as a cloak, a tool, as just another card to get ahead, and moral codes have been reduced to yet another strategy for wheeling and dealing with. And one idea, which I've mentioned a few times previously, that might be already familiar to people with a transhumanist background, is moral enhancement, which might be achieved with genetic therapies, psychopharmacology, neurotechnology, where morality is enhanced enough to such a degree that even the idea of using morality to wheel and deal, to trick and deceive, would be absolutely repugnant. And Professor Donald Steiny also raised another point, which I find to be very interesting, is specialization. And every discipline and subdiscipline by now is as deep and crammed with as much knowledge as many libraries of Alexandria. Even something super specialized like neuropsychopharmacology is an entire library of Alexandria or three. So it seems to me that we've reached a point where humanity's collective knowledge has gone way, way beyond the storage capacity and capabilities of the world's greatest polymaths and history's autodidacts. So that is where I think AI can come in and assist us, whether that means merging with it, using AI as a kind of digital Akashic record where we can plug in and download the information we need, like a future generation of the godlike custodianism of search engines like Google, or a third option where we put our trust in AI and use it as a kind of benevolent dictator or watcher with stewardship over us, and any other ways we can utilize it. So the field of epistemology might be given a good shake-up as well when artificial intelligence is born, namely how we discover new knowledge, how we store it, how we download it, and how we apply it in the real world, which I think loops back a little bit to what Mr. Hugh Chang said about knowledge, and AI might be the way forward to map undiscovered countries of as of yet unknown knowledge instead of recycling old ways. And we yesterday we touched upon the option of or the ability to opt out. I just had a few more thoughts about that. So expanding on opting out of a smart city system if you're concerned about information security, data breaching, or if you're just skeptical of certain technologies. Technology is so ubiquitous. Right now it's almost ubiquitous, with many mixtures of different parameters, so it might not be as easy as pushing a button to opt out. Certainly pushing one button anyway. So how would we be able to opt out with the technology surrounding us now, of which there is a lot? Some people don't like social media, so you can shut down your profile but continue to use a laptop. You don't want to use a smartphone for whatever reason, like privacy issues or internet addiction. So to take measures against those, one downgrades down from using a smartphone down to using an old style cell phone that just has text and call capabilities. So it's so nuanced with lots of things with different parameters running alongside in parallel. However, having said that, if different parts of our environment are all connected and working in tandem as one, like in a smart city, then it might be easier and more possible to opt out at the push of a button more than the devices we use now, where there's still some level of separability. But there was one consideration I overlooked when contemplating the opt-out question, where to function in a society, you do have to obey the rules and the laws. It's the virtuous way to live. And as Darwin said, you have to adapt to play the game, buy the ticket. So opting out might be not joining society in the first place and staying away in the countryside. One downside to that I know of is the Chinese social credit system is the restrictions of people being able to leave if their score is too low. So if you don't like the society, you can't opt out and leave that life behind if they wanted to. Their score is too low, which has disturbing potential consequences. So maybe opting out is a matter of luck, depending on where you're born. And even though, like I said, I've never lived in China whilst the system is in place, and never been to China at all, including in the midst of the digitized social credit system, my intuition gave me a red flag when the story first started, and the idea of a smart city gives me a similar red flag about not going down that route. So when it did the rounds and in media reportages, I felt quite uneasy about it. So yes, with regards to opt-out protocols, I first thought it might be harder to opt out in a smart near future if technology is more ubiquitous, and then reconsidered and thought it might be easier if all these ever-present devices were always in sync with each other, auto-connecting, centralized. Whereas right now, in the present, you have devices from all different companies, different variations of devices from different brands, with their own plugs that you might need adapters for if you need to connect devices together that come from different assembly lines in different countries to each other. So I think, that's what I have to say about smart cities and the issue of people who might not want to engage with that level of technology.
Thank you, Mr. Adam. Anyone want to add some point with Mr. Adam?
Yes, I'd like to, Adam, about the opt-out issue, which I think is really a fundamental thing to think through before we engage in this. I think that I guess I'm thinking in terms of Marxism again, but it's who controls the means of production. It's like who's controlling the centralized data, and who's allowing you to opt out? These are some of the questions that we might want to spend some time thinking about. Thanks for bringing that up.
Oh, thank you. Yes, yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I wondered who is looking. Yeah, is it an AI or a person, and if it's a person, is it one person or a committee of people? Yes, go back to the question: who makes the decisions? Who elects these people? Who makes the decisions? So yeah, it's a complicated thing to contemplate.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I want to request Mr. Tom Rose. We have he's a world famous speaker, and he is contributing a lot around the world. Even hopefully with all of our speakers, we can do a offline conference in Malaysia or Singapore in future after this COVID situations, because many people actually want to see you in real world. So yes, Tom Rose is one of the speakers that always I get many calls from corporations and the media. So hopefully we will invite him and all of our speakers in Asia Pacific soon. Mr. Tom Rose.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm flattered. And what's funny is that I accepted your invitation to be on Smart Cities, primarily because I have no idea about this subject, and I'm interested in it. There's certain projects that are going on that fascinate me, and so it's really a chance to learn. So, to position myself where I fit in the whole smart, wise city argument. And I always go back to, let's listen hard to the digital natives and what those trends are. I do see there have been very positive trends that happened post Corona. I mean, telecommuting was increased. People realize how productive they can be at home. And I think it's an important phase for humanity to be in, to appreciate our home, not only our space that we live in and our families, but our region, our culture, our nationality, because the nuances of that data are gold. And that's where we should really maybe base the whole new economy on, is this data, one idea. But and so that's been a very positive trend, that telecommuting and working and Zoom is now a very common, thing. A year ago, it was new. And so these trends are very positive. They are moving us towards more of a cocooning thing, but that's really good for the planet. It's good for companies' overhead, not having to pay for buildings and office space and things like that. So it's some very positive trends. It's obviously we're in a lacuna where there's going to be some negative spurs of that trend of people being displaced, and a lot of things are going to be displaced. And but I do think it's very important, now that we know that AI automation is real and prolific and profound, that we need to find a way to set a whole new value system on our intrinsic human traits that cannot be coded or automated. That's where the gold is. We've forgotten what those things are, thanks to the industrial age. And so a wise city should really take into account the things that James was talking about: town squares, places for people to come and just talk and be human. Really focus on these things. There is also the reality that maybe half or even more people, at least 30%, I know in the US, don't want that. They don't want a place where you can have these liberal ideals. They do want guns, and they want to be alone, and they want to isolate, and that's a big part of that, the human psyche, right, that is expressed. So when we talk about smart cities, I was realizing we're kind of talking about human beings. I mean, smart cities or any city is just an extrapolation of the human experience, right? And what we need, what our brains need. And so I'm finding a lot of correlation when we talk about what a future smart city needs. And it's just like the way I handle my family. I am paying attention to what my sons need. I'm offering what advice I can from my experience as an analog person, to help them. I'm finding that Venn diagram between my experience and my analog experience and their needs, and I'm finding where they intersect, where the things that all of us have in common, regardless of where we're from, that earthling Venn diagram. And so I think it's important to find that. It's a multi-dimensional Venn diagram. But if we could find that quantum, that core, and speak to that, and shift some of the behaviors in that core, Like reframing the way we bring up topics rather than the problem of climate change, the brilliant solutions that climate change. We really need to embolden young people and give them grand ideas. We need to really talk in big ways, like changing the currency, changing the currency based on something else. The young people are coming up with this. Our paradigm doesn't work anymore. It really doesn't. Everything's shifted. We need to be actively listening to young people, what they need, and facilitate those trends and get our ego out of the way. All these research studies that are done about young people having too much screen time and all of that, that's based on older people's opinion of FaceTime and how they hate that their children watch on the phone at dinner, right? And so we create these studies and we damn these things. But what we need to realize is that these young people, when they are on their phones, if they're not Instagramming or something, they are connecting with their hive mind. They're connecting with hundreds, if not thousands, of people in a given moment, and we need to facilitate that. We don't need to put our own prejudices onto this. And so, I think a wise city will take that into account. But a wise city really needs to listen to young people. I was doing this in radio. There was a big problem with, obviously young people leaving radio. Listenership in 18 to 24 was dropping dramatically, 12 on up. And, so what do you do? So my idea was we had hundreds of radio stations around the country. Let's find one in some small market that, some AM weather station or something, and give it over to high school kids. Let them see what they do with it. What do they do with this medium? How would they, use this access, and then take note of that, and then implement those things and scale them across the company. Now, that particular project didn't quite take off, but it got some legs. And so, yeah, for me, it's all coming back. The wisest thing we can do right now is shut up and listen, and get our egos out of the room, right? Get in a place of empathy where ego has no place, and understand. I remember myself at that age, when I was 19, and I wished some baby boomer would listen to me the way I'm trying to listen to them now, because I felt like I had ideas, and whatever they were talking about didn't make sense, and it didn't work for me. And we were called then the post-baby boom generation before we had the Gen X moniker. And so I was really hoping there would be someone like me out there who would just listen to me and ignore their templates. So anyway, that's why I wanted to come on. I wanted to learn from you experts about smart cities and the things that we need to be considering, and then find my place in it. And I think I have. And it always goes back to listening to young people and giving them platforms. And that's what I do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anyone want to add some point with Mr. Tom?
I think it's really important that a couple of you actually brought up about empathy. I think it's really important that we listen to all of our people, regardless of their age, and try to design cities that are going to work for every single person. We can't just look at one particular subset of people when we're trying to design how our cities are going to be. But obviously what people are bringing up about looking to the future and listening to younger generations and things like that, we always have to be looking to the future. We're not going to be able to have a city where we make it and have it be just, okay, that's perfect, and we can never do any better than that. We're always going to be able to be working on improving quality of life for everyone. I think that everything that everyone spoke on each had its own validity in regards to having a smart city. We absolutely have to open up pathways for everyone to get education. We should be working to progress to have everyone of any age should be able to have as much education as they want to have in our cities, because we have to be constantly learning and constantly in communication with one another, and empathetic to one another, and listening to what the issues that people are facing really are, so that we can begin to build in solutions to the issues that we're facing. And it really depends where people live around the world, around the nation, our nations, and around the world entirely, where they live, with what their quality of life is so far. Some people may really have a lot of societal conditions worked out already, and they can really jump even further into a lot of these smart, different technologies and things like that some areas may not be able to get into just yet. I think that it's nice to have a mix, depending where you are, of solving the issues that we have now. There's a lot of places where people are homeless, they don't have food, they don't have basic needs. And those have to be taken care of. But on the other hand, we have to be developing futuristic technologies that are going to come in, but that have people at the center of it. We don't want our technologies to get so advanced that we lose sight of quality of life for people. Because if our technologies are not being used to have a better life for ourselves, for all people, and the planet, they're not that good of a use of technology. So I think we really need to make sure that those things happen, and that we're using technology and science and things like that to bring about a better quality of life for everybody. Again, there's no point of politics except to make a better quality of life for everybody that they're representing in that area. And hopefully even, network out with other people to help make bigger quality of life than even just your own immediate area. And there's really no point of technology either, unless it is to have a better life and have a better world. These destructive technologies and things like that are the opposite of what we should be, looking to put into our cities as we're developing. And quality of life includes bringing people's healthcare up, having parks, having areas that people that want to go socialize can socialize, and then making sure that people that maybe don't want to socialize as much have a good quality of life, within their own areas that they choose to be, and just keep working on those, and literally applying, math and science, just to, make sure that these issues are resolved, and that's really what you have to work on. Fortunately, there are places where people don't have food insecurity, and people are home, and there isn't a lot of crime, and people have education and healthcare and things like that, and that's great. That means they have, maybe less issues to solve, to go forward into other things too. But there's a lot of areas where that all has to be worked on, and they have to keep that in mind with developing further, that it's still going to be things that are leading to quality of life and the best quality of life that we can for everyone.
Thank you, Professor Donald. Yeah,
You're muted, Donald.
I just want to say something that I've kind of said before, is that we have to be careful when we talk about education, because we've got ourselves into a situation where what's good and valuable is that you go to the university, you get a technology degree, you get a job as an engineer. After you become an engineer for a while, you become a manager and a CEO. And once you're a CEO, you're highest merit, you're the highest status. And I can get into the fact that there's a lot of luck involved in that. And it's not actually merit, but that's a different story. But the point of the matter is no matter how far we get into the future, we're going to require people that take care of all the things that we need to have taken care of. There's always going to be plumbers. There's always going to be people that take care of all the various kinds of things that we have in life. And all of those people are specialized. All of those people have skills that are far beyond what I certainly know how to do. I was a software engineer for 20 years. I've been a teacher of how Unix internals work and Linux internals. That's how the programs themselves work. And I've did that for many years. And so that's very, very specialized technology. But I just remodeled my house, and I had to have I just am in awe of the people who basically put in the sheetrock and made the walls look perfectly smooth and perfect like that. I mean, what a skill. All of those people, we somehow undervalue them and their lower status. And that's something I don't know quite how to address, but we developed a system where we're undervaluing people who are incredibly valuable. And it's sort of taking off on what Jennifer said, is that we, in a perfect city or in a future city, and I think that we got ourselves into this bind because we tried to figure out ways of measuring things so that we could ask ourselves, is this company successful? Is this project that we did successful? Is this thing successful that we're doing? And we asked ourselves, well, what can we measure? And when you're measuring something that's social, it's difficult to do. And so what we did, but it's easy to measure how much money we made. And so we got into the situation where everything we did, we started measuring in terms of dollars and cents. And all around the world, people are starting to measure things like happiness, health, different kinds of things like that. And I think that we can start, when we're building smart cities, I think that we can start switching to measuring what we're doing and measuring our success at building these smart cities in ways that that don't just use money as the criteria. Start looking at health. If a city doesn't have homelessness and people have long lifespans and they're healthy and there's low infant mortality and there's low maternal mortality, then all of a sudden we built a smart city. We built a healthy city. We're successful. And I'd like to see that's something that we can actually do and we can do right now.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Jamsid? Yeah.
Yes, I had one more comment to make, and it was about the emphasis on paying attention to the youth. And I just wanted to say that, I don't care what country you're from. I don't care what language you speak. We have more in common than we have differences. And if we concentrate on the differences, we're going wrong. We should concentrate on what we have in common. And this goes for generations. The thing that chess gave me, one of the things that it gave me that I really valued, I didn't know either of my grandparents, but because I played the game of chess and I was good at it early on in life, people my grandparents' age took an interest in me. And so I got to spend time with people of different age groups. And it was a very, very helpful to me, especially in my teenage angst years, to get different perspectives. And, we can pay too much homage to youth. We see with men with their middle-age crises and the women doing horrible things to their faces so that they can look young. And, so it is not to pay attention to what you are not and hope that you can become that, but it's to accept yourself as you are and to accept others as they are. And if we can do that, we can work together. We can cooperate and collaborate. And these are the things that we want to do in every endeavor in our lives, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Professor Ching, you want to give a speech on smart city?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I can give some comments. How long you want me to talk? I don't want to.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Let me give you some comment. Okay. First, I predict both saving loan crisis and the subprime vote. And I helped Bernanke solve the subprime vote. Okay, he was really grateful that I gave him the solution, but he forgot about me afterwards completely. Okay, so basically, I'm not. I don't believe anybody knows how to solve financial crisis because I went through this process. Okay. So there's much more difficult crisis waiting for us. The health crisis, the environmental crisis, the complexity crisis. Okay, those are much more difficult. So human race is in a very bad position, knowledge-wise. Okay, so my conclusion is this. We look at Posan, look over past history. We find the only way society will change is to go to a new world. Okay, there's no such thing. Throughout history, just culture jump from new world to new world, and they change that way. Okay, we got a very few new world left. So I'm not going to be the person who's going to spend most of my time to do that because I don't know how to do that. Okay, I'm too busy dancing. Okay. So another thing about AI, people keep talking about AI. Let me tell you, this AI stuff is going to bring us complexity crisis because it's all based on partially automated software. Okay, partially automated software need human manual update. And today already there's so much software cannot be updated, cannot be maintained. And we're heading into, we're piling up higher the software. And it's already a crisis, and it's going to bring about a crisis so big, it's the payer in comparison with all this financial crisis. So our company, I actually patented the complete automated software, and it's so difficult to think. It involves 3 innovations in one patent, so it's very difficult to think. So far, Google, all this Microsoft especially, I keep calling their lawyers, telling them to shift, but they don't want to do that. So AI today is contributing negatively overall. That's my way, my feeling, and also about health crisis. Okay, I'm sorry to say that life science is in a worse condition than social science. The life scientists do not even know what life science is about. Okay, I believe life science should be completely logical. Should be completely logical system like DNA. Okay, which is a computer system. So in other words, life science should be based on complete logic, not based on experimentation. Okay, it cannot be empirically verified. Okay, today everybody, social science, life science, they think they want to use empirical verification for their subject, but it's completely wrong. And so far nobody produced any solution in social science and life science. So we have problems, you see.
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor.
I'm more negative than anybody, so I appreciate people being negative to me. Okay, don't think I'm going to, get angry over people when they tell me to shut up. No problem, you see, because I'm the guy who should really be shut up. Talking like this. I will let my students to speak. Okay, whatever they can understand, they absorb it, they promote it. So you look out for cultural level quotient, looking out for fuzzy logic, all these things we're promoting. We don't believe that. We believe the society should not be exact, should not be like a robot with zero tolerance. We need the society to be like human with a range of tolerance, not with zero tolerance like a robot, with a range of tolerance like a human. Okay. So basically, we are pushing all these things. The young people, they pick up, and that's fine. They're going to run with it. And this is pandemic. Pandemic help us to do all this, and we appreciate. And now I'm going back to my dancing, so I'm fine. San Francisco.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tom, Jennifer. You want to add some point with Professor?
And I just, I agree. I agree that we have to keep our society infused with knowledge. It's really important that and knowledge is not just, based off of some academic degrees specifically in technology or anything like that. But to have people be able to be, our information to be accessible as we're learning it to our society. Things shouldn't be, as we're designing cities, people talk about transparency and they talk about education and things like that, but a lot of times it doesn't actually happen. So I think those are just one of the things that we have to keep in mind, that the information that we learn should be available for all of our people. They should also be able to have as much access to information and things like that as possible. It doesn't necessarily have to be specifically through some type of degree program that we have right now. But there's paths, for all kinds of things. We have a proposal for our city for here. Would be we have a lot of historic homes here and a lot of abandoned homes here, and so we have even just some things as we were discussing about home renovations. Even learning those different things, electric, plumbing, sheetrock painting, and all of those things to be upgrading our city and improving it. So people, we don't have all these abandoned homes, and then people that are homeless actually have nice homes, and setting up training programs and pass that way. There's a lot that can be done to really infuse knowledge through the city, I think, in a lot of ways. And some people know or don't know that my husband and I both have volunteered with the Venus Project for quite some time now, at least a decade. And so people that are familiar with those proposals know that they are in regard to having things that are progressing for disaster resistance and the things that are going to be coming up in our future, other pandemics and things like that. But these are because they're science-based, and they're also people-oriented. So it really, our designs for anything going forward, like we said, just what everyone was saying, have to be centered around people and centered around our environment and centered around keeping everyone in a good quality of life and educated. Those are, time after time proven that when we have people that have a high quality of life and have access to education as much as possible and things like that, that it's happier for people, and it's just a better way of designing things. So you can set those up and set it up to have technology to improve, to be able to address issues and things, but not have it, again, these cold, sterile, dystopian ideas that some people have when it comes to thoughts of incorporating technologies, into cities to improve them.
Thank you. Mr. Tomro, what's your final thought?
Just the idea that dance, it is a dance, and I think it's a perfect metaphor, analogy, whatever. Whether whether we're talking here, if it's a dance of a debate of going back and forth, or if it's the dance of a smart city trying to figure out where things should go or how to be wise. And it is a dance, and we are in the crescendo of that dance. We're about to do the dip or whatever it is that happens at the height of a tango, maybe. And maybe you could fill me in on that. But we are really, and the thing we need to remember is it is a dance. We need to be graceful as we spin each other or whatever we're doing to one another. But ultimately, the human story is a dance, and we're about to dip. And if we get it right, we will be successful. And so but I think the real point, and I thought of something too, is I've traveled a lot lately, and a couple years ago, and in Spain and even in Israel, people dance. They get together in the afternoons, in the early evenings, and they dance in town squares, and and we don't really do that here. It's very isolated in certain communities that we do these things, but it's just for me, it just, and probably because it's a certain heritage and a certain culture that's grown up there, and they dance together. But if we could figure out a way to turn the entropy of our diversity into a dance, as you know, as a way to control whatever's happening, because we can't control what's happening. We're like putting a bucket up to a tidal wave right now, and we're capturing some of it, but it's still coming. And so I think we need to get lost in the dance. Let's get lost in the arguments, but let's remember that it's a graceful thing that we are experiencing. We are right in the middle of it. It's really hard to see it when you're in the eye of it. And so, yeah, I take a lot away from this couple of hours here. What I've learned about smart cities, the things we need to consider, and I think dance is a good way to top it off.
Thank you everyone for joining today's sessions. Actually, this is the way actually we have to improve. We have to listen carefully. Even my personal experience last 1 year from this kind of open discussion, I learn a lot, and perhaps I have the person that I have to listen a lot. And reality is that when I do the real life projects or real life work in my profession, I feel so fresh because all of the new thoughts, all of the new things from different person, different cultures, it's actually helped me a lot. So I believe the students, the youth community, the policymakers, the corporation, those who utilizing World Talent Economy Forum content and this kind of open dialogue, this is ultimately very good learning for them. Even though I am from a developing nation, I'm sure that few of the parliament members every day they are observing World Talent Economy Forum show. Try to learn from today how the developed nation they do debate. Even they have some sort of argument and other things, but they do scientifically, they do very politely. This is the learning for our parliament even. So this way, this is the way we have to improve, and listening is very important things, and we have to respect each other. And most important thing is that different thought from different culture. So that's why we are developing our academic activities and everything. We want to invite all of our speakers from their different background, different culture, to enlighten our new community, the global citizen, the youth community in Asia Pacific, because this way they will learn the different concept and different issues, and this is the way of improvement. And another thing I always want to say why I put this name World Talent Economy Forum. I can remember the 2015 when I first visit the Harrow schools, and this school is actually one of the famous school where Winston Churchill, Jawaharlal Nehru, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, everyone go and they finish their education. The principal actually teach me one important point. Even the same thing I learned from my dean, Professor Habibur Rahman. He already died. That for youth community, you do not have to teach them mathematics, science, this, that. You have to create them a very good example. You have to create a vision for them. So this is our objective, that in World Talent Economy Forum, we do not want to teach anything, but I want to create an example for our youth community. This is Mr. Tom, how he built himself with his creativity, innovations. This is Jennifer, this is Professor Ching, this is Professor Donald, how they develop themselves, how resourceful they are, how qualified they are. So many qualified people actually join, and they are the hero. They are the hero for them. If our youth community, they fix their goal, yes, I want to be like Mr. Tom, ultimately they will do everything. They have internet, they have teachers, they have factory, everything. But we have to motivate the youth community. With youth community has many wrong example, even in social media, even in internet, even in offline. They see, hey, these people highly corrupted, make money and become billionaires soon in the developing nations. But if they find that this is the high qualified peoples, and this is their lifestyle, and this is their thoughts, I'm sure our community will be changed. So that's why you people are our hero. You people actually changing the world. You people actually creating example, and you are motivating the youth community. And trust me, just for this like 1,000 student scholarships, I told you I feel so fresh when I do real life work, because every time I am learning, every time. So in between, I think few hours I just convinced that okay, we can bring 1,000 students, and all of the support we will get from this ecosystem. And this is the way. I just want to request everyone, join as a team, and I'm sure we will change millions of lives, and you people are the hero. Mr. Tom, Jennifer, Donald, Mr. Chings, Mr. Rob, what are all of the speakers from Transhumanist Party, from different background, because the youth community need a right example. And for when we choose like our guests and speakers, we are just give the priority the high quality people. So developing nations need lot good example. They need good visions. That's why we are creating World Talent Economy Forum, and our objective is to create a knowledge-based community. So hopefully, in between few years, we can create 1 million talent peoples, and these talent people will change their community. We do not have to do anything. We need to motivate them. We need to create example that this is the hero, I want to be like him. This is the hero, I want to be like him. So you people are hero, and you people are the like inspiring our future communities. And hopefully in between 6 months we will get our 1,000 students, and we will invite you all in Malaysia, and hopefully there are a lot of fun, enjoyments, and a lot of things we will achieve. Already we get our campus, 5-star category campus, and all of the necessary support. And this is the achievement. I believe that this is all of the achievement of our speakers, because continuously you support, you guide us, you mentoring us, you give the real way. And I learn a lot. And our youth community, our policymaker, our corporation, they said this is the new world. This is the new thought for them. So thank you, everyone. Maybe we face a lot of challenges, but if we work together, trust me, this is new world. COVID actually bringing the new world. This is for the youth communities. This is the, I believe the change is coming. It's soon we will change many things. And what I see from my own eyes, maybe next 2-3 years will be very interesting. Many big corporations maybe die, many new industry will grow, many new knowledge will come, especially this world will be for the youth. Youth will take over this world, and they will change. But definitely they need hero like you. Thank you, Mr. Tom, for your continuous support, Professor Donalds, Jennifer's, and Professor Chings for your very thoughtful discussion. Bye-bye and take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sharif.
Bye-bye.
Great
Tom
work
can
you're doing.
represent me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.